Welcome back, everyone. I still have Kent here with me, and we're going to be talking about one more truth, actually. We're going to start off the lies segment with one more truth, and we're going to just try to go off into a bunch of tangents from there. But Kent, you actually remembered a truth that you really wanted to talk about, and let's go start with that.
Yeah, well, when you got talking about, the subject of we're going to talk about some lies.
Yeah.
One of the first lies I thought about was the idea that, like, finding an art where they tell you this is what you need, this is all you need, this is the perfect art, whatever it might be. We all know that's bullshit. But the reality of it is that highlighted a major truth for me. And one of the truths that I've really come to agree with over the years, Guru Dana Nasano has always said, for the 22 years I've been training underneath him, he's always said to me in every seminar, every camp, every class I've ever been, he's like, every 5 years your body's totally different, your body changes. And when I was 20, that just sounded like nice stuff to say, And then I got to be 30, and I got to be 35, and I got to be 40, and now I'm about to be 45. And boy, he was right. The guy that's now 85, he was right. And here's the thing, is that because the truth is your body's going to change, what works for you really well right now might not work really well for your body in 10 years. I used to have a great spinning kick. I mean, I was flexible. I was awesome at it. So I didn't stretch. You know why? Because I didn't need to. And now I need to. I need to stretch before I go to bed. I don't understand. How do you wake up and like somebody kicked your ass? Yeah. That's what it feels like if I don't stretch out first.
Right.
There's a whole different thing, right? And so I think that one of the biggest truths is no matter what art you do, your body's going to change. So therefore, your art is going to change with you.
With it, right?
Like there are one major injury will change what's a functional art for you now.
Oh man, is that the truth or what?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
And also think about like what art is functional when you're super tired.
That's a good point.
What art
That's a good question.
And I don't just mean sleepy. I mean, like, what if you're exhausted?
Yeah.
What art is functional for you when we're 10 feet away versus face to face? Like, do I have to run up to you and grab you and throw you on the ground before I can start using my jiu-jitsu?
Right.
Oh no, I can take a rock and throw it at your head, use my talent.
Right.
So I think like the first biggest lie you hear, right, comes down to say like, this is the only thing you'll ever need. If you do this the way it will always work.
Because it's always advertised like that.
100%.
Whether it's through seminars or advertisements on, social media, TV, flyers, whatever. They just, man, they are so bad about it. They are so bad. And I understand it. It's business. You got to get people in the door. But I feel like, wait a minute. We've been across the country, and I've seen schools, honestly, advertise what they do and how and why, and still have just as many, and in some cases, if not more, than the schools that misadvertise.
Oh yeah.
So I know it can be done where you can honestly advertise what you do.
Well, one of the biggest ones, and everybody's heard this, right, is that like size and strength doesn't really matter.
Right.
That's cliche.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that cliche? Because that's real. Everybody likes to say that. But the reality of it is, it totally matters. Otherwise, there wouldn't be weight classes in competitive sports. Like, that's just the reality.
That's so true.
And how am I going to sit there and tell, maybe a 55-year-old female, right, who's 130 pounds, let's say, and tell her that like, oh yeah, with your jiu-jitsu, you will have no problems against this 25-year-old, 6'2", 250 pound, drunk college football fan who's decided that like, you're about to have a bad day. Yeah. You're telling me that like martial arts alone is going to save her? No. It's not going to right away. Otherwise, it would work immediately.
Yes.
Otherwise, we wouldn't need to have more than one technique.
Yeah, good point.
If size and strength didn't matter, one technique, it's all you need. Boom. There you go. Why would there be two techniques? The other one works. First one works. Size and strength don't matter.
Right.
And that's the problem we run into, right? And so it's totally a big lie. Anytime you run into somebody that says size and strength doesn't matter, go the other direction.
Okay.
Go the other direction.
Yep.
You need to find an instructor that's going to tell you the truth and be like, it does matter 100%. And how we offset size and strength is with skill and experience. Right. Not defeat it. It might defeat it. It might not. But it's how we start to balance the
Offset
scales.
the terms, yeah.
That's right, offset, and that's what you'll do. There, there's a
Equalizing the terms in some way.
There's no silver bullets. There's just better chances.
I agree with that. Right.
That's all there is to it.
Okay. Well, no, that's awesome, because that's been a huge topic for me that I've been having a difficult time even tackling myself, trying to figure out how am I going to explain this, whether I'm in person or in my book or whatever, to the uninitiated, because they get so misadvertised upon with that. And so I'm thinking, okay, whether it's me or you or any other school owner or teacher, and they come in, and it's not their fault, it's not mine or yours, but unfortunately they have been misled via these advertisements, marketing, and even these other schools and instructors who mispromote that way, and then they end up for some reason stumbling upon someone like you or myself, and then their first question or comments or sentiments out of the gate are something along the lines of size doesn't matter, or this works in a fight or that doesn't, and a lot of times I end up just freezing, because I'm like, I know exactly what to say, but why am I frozen right now? Because I'm trying to figure out how am I going to explain this to them, and because if I explain it too not well enough, I might lose them.
Sure.
I might lose them because they might go, oh shit, like you're telling me, like for instance, like with Casey here, she went to a Krav school for a while, and then after that she was attacked. She was mugged in the street in Baltimore, and she discovered that that didn't work. But then of course at that time, we could sit here all day and be like, well,
it could be it was the school, it was the teacher,
all this other stuff.
Right.
We could go on all day. And then, of course, like that other lady we were telling you about, Brigitte, she had a student too that was a prominent Taekwondo practitioner, and she was attacked. And again, it didn't work. So I'm always trying to figure out, man, how can we reapproach this truth, or this lie rather, and fix it? And just over time, a slow drip where we're all involved, me, you, and the whole martial arts community, self-defense and all that. And guys, we got to start telling the truth, but we can also do it in a way that keeps them involved, gets them involved in all that. Can you kind of bounce off of that?
Well, I think, number one, anybody that might be listening to this or reading your book, I think you can do them that service right now.
Okay.
Right? Like, and you're probably already in this mindset, I'm sure. Right? But like a good checklist of like the things to, like, here's your pros and here's your cons. These are good signs. These are bad signs.
Okay.
One of the things you want to look for an instructor that can straight up tell you size and strength are important, and that's why we need to look at martial arts. Because
I feel like that's a big one.
You want to look for things like a school that's clean, so you don't wind up with the staph infection,
right?
Stuff like that. You want to look for because that'll take you out
immediately.
There's the fitness part,
right?
And the
fitness
fun
and
part,
wellness. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it wipes it all out. That's true.
How about things like this? Look at the senior student. Don't look at the instructor. Look at the senior students. Look at the guys that have been there with this guy 5 years.
Yeah.
Right? And see what their skill level is. Don't just look at one either. Look at, okay, who are your top 5 people here? How long have they been with you? So maybe I could expect to be an average of these 5 people's skills within this amount of years, or what, you have to look at that. If you got somebody that not a soul can looks like they can defend themselves, and listen to that. Listen to yourself. Listen to your inner warning.
And I like that, because that goes back into De Becker's book, where it's the gift of fear. Listen to your intuition when you're observing. Because I love 100%. This quote from a comedian that we listen to sometimes. His name is Stephen Hofstetter. And
not a slapper.
That's right. And he said in this one segment, or this one stand-up he did, where a heckler was challenging him about what he knew or didn't know about having kids. And he says, let me ask you something. I'm paraphrasing now, but he's basically to the point. He says, if you see a helicopter in a tree, you don't have to be a pilot to know that something went wrong.
Good point.
So that's kind of what I like to tell people in my segments, or I'm going to say it in my book and whatever, is look, listen to that. There's nothing wrong with listening to that.
Yeah.
Now, you could be wrong. You could walk into a school and your intuition could fool you. Yeah, sure.
100%.
But for the most part, human intuition is extremely powerful. You know when something's not right.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't have to be an expert in that field to be like, wait a minute, whoa. I'm just walked into this place, and, half the females in here are bloodied up and the guys are not, like there's something wrong going on.
Oh yeah, you have to
You know.
be observant.
And I mean, hey, if you're walking into a fight school and these women are training to fight and they are beasts, yeah, they're probably going to have some bruises and bumps and maybe even some blood. And so in those conditions, I would say that's probably normal. But if you go into...
What's your goal going in?
Right.
Or you might be looking for that.
Yeah.
And then again, you might not.
Right.
So like what I would say is, I guess really what I'm trying to do is maybe like look at that pros and cons list based on like goal free.
Right.
You know, like despite what your goal is, I would think you'd want a clean school. Despite what your goal is, you want an instructor that, like, you know, has his head and his ass not completely sewn together. You know, you want an instructor that can speak to you, communicate with you. You want a place where, like, is the student body friendly? Am I comfortable here? When I walk in, do I get sick to my stomach because I'm nervous about trying it, or do I walk in and get sick to my stomach because the whole place creeps me out? Like those are two different reasons for the same feeling. You know, like there's general anxiety, and then it's like, but what's the source of it? Is it the vibe of the place, or is it just me being nervous? That's a good question, right? When you first come in, things like it's not always the most important thing that somebody have like a really deep lineage and history, but it's never bad to ask about it. One of the reasons why it's never bad to ask about it is you can check up on that. Like somebody says, like, "Oh yeah, I'm a black belt." You've seen this one 100 times. I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Oh yeah, who with? You know, well, come to find out. You know, like just that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like you want somebody vetted for the simple fact. I mean, they might be great. They might have great knowledge, but you want to be able to talk to somebody else that was like, "Oh yeah, I had a good experience there," versus like, "Oh yeah, be careful of that guy." Reputation is huge. Like all that kind of stuff will help smooth the waters for you.
Okay.
You know, but ultimately, you know what I tell my people when they first come in, first visitor, if you were to come in and train with us, when we first bow into the class, I would come right over to you. If I haven't already seen you and shook your hand, if I didn't see you sneak in, I was talking to other people, whatever, the whole class is lined up across the floor. I walk right over to you, shake your hand. I says, "Hey, my name is Drew Kent. It's really nice to meet you." And I tell them, says, "Listen, I don't know what you're expecting coming in tonight, but all I want you to do tonight is I just want you to have fun. We're going to do a few warm-ups together, and then we're going to split into some groups that are like by kind of like the skill level. So I don't want you to expect anything out of yourself. So I don't want you to feel like, oh, I can't do that. I don't understand those motions. None of that matters. I tell them the big thing you want to do tonight is see if you have fun and like the vibe of the group, get to know the people. If you enjoy the people in the group, you'll come back, you'll learn all sorts of stuff. But don't walk away tonight feeling like, oh, that was super complicated. I can't do that."
Yeah.
And that, I've been told later on by people that was so helpful. Because it, like, I walked right up to him and said that to him in front of the whole class.
Yeah.
You know, and because
it just made them feel very welcome.
Yeah, because to them, not everybody in the class, all the way down the line, of course, we line up this way. That's why I'm gesturing that way, right? But everybody has heard me do that speech to somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that person doesn't know that everybody here expects that person to be a beginner. They walk in thinking, I don't know what these other guys know, and I don't want to embarrass myself, and I don't want to get hurt, and I don't know what's going to happen. These, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And for me to go over there and say to them, don't worry about it. We understand. Just have fun. Get to know the group.
Right.
And they see me say that in front of all the people, and now they know all the people are thinking that way too.
Right.
And there's an immediate like. Some of the anxiety goes off.
Right.
And then I don't even have to assign it to people. Somebody from the group will automatically, when we start warming up, will run over to that person and be like, "Hang out with me." And then they just start like, just do what I do, you know, and give them little corrections. And so they don't feel alone, you know, and that's nothing I assign people to do. They just do it because they want to help each other out.
See, that's great, because that just goes into another thing I wanted to talk about, which was culture. Like what, you know, culture is so huge when it comes to helping people feel comfortable. Because one of the main reasons why we've found so far that most people don't participate in martial arts is not because, you know, it's scary necessarily. They walk in and they feel intimidated and uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable experience because people don't. We live in a society where we're very averse to physical contact, you know, whereas, you know, some cultures are not.
Right.
But the American culture, definitely, there's a lot of aversion to physical contact, you know, and we just, other than shaking hands with a friend or hugging a family member, other than that, we're just not comfortable with it. Yeah, personal space, right? Sure. So when you go to a place like a martial arts school or self-defense school, the first thing that's broken is personal space. And so I appreciate that you have a method where you're like, look, it's important to me that you feel comfortable from out of the gate, because if you're not, you're walking.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'm the one that has to live with that as the owner, teacher, or whatever. Because a lot of schools, they don't even, and again, not blaming them, but I just think they're oblivious to it. They're not thinking about that uninitiated or new student coming in, and they don't know them. And they walk, like for us, we travel the country. We've gone to schools where we're standing there going, and I'm looking at her trying to give her the signal, like, I want to get the hell out of here. I don't like this place. I don't like these people. And I have been training for a long time. Why do I feel bothered by this? That's really bizarre to me. I should be totally, I should not care.
You got good internal warning belts.
Yeah.
That's why.
Ding, ding.
You got good internal warning belts.
I do. And it bothers me sometimes, but obviously most of the time it doesn't, because I know to go with it. But so I feel very appreciative that you bring that up, and that's how you solve that problem.
Well, I think that, you know, when you're dealing with, I might not have come to that if I was doing a system that was, say, like all kata or something where we don't make that contact, right? But I mean, if you come into my classes, despite what subject it is, like somebody's gonna touch you. Like that's just how it is. Like if we're throwing punches, if we're clinching, or we're doing jiu-jitsu, we're swinging sticks at each other's head, whatever it might be, we're gonna make contact. And so, you know, it's very important to me that the person's comfortable.
Right.
That's a huge thing. And before I clinch with somebody for the first time, like before I even start to show them clinch games, and before, like anytime I teach them jiu-jitsu for the first time, I always say, like, you know, is it like, I'm gonna show you this thing called a, you know, single necktie or double necktie. I'm gonna touch your neck. Is it cool if I touch you? Yeah. Like I just say that phrase, is it cool if I touch you? And let them give me the permission, and then I'm right. And it's not a formal thing. It's just real relaxed and fast. But boy, later on, they've been like, hey, I really appreciate you saying.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize you were going to climb on top of me until you said, are you comfortable with me climbing on? Like when you said top mount, I didn't know what that term meant. And then you're like, it means I want to climb on top of you.
Right.
Are you okay with that if I just have my knee on each side and go, yeah.
Yeah.
And then later on, like, hey, that was really cool of you to like give me that. You know? And that creates a comfort zone. Now they can train with other people like that. They know what top mount means.
Right.
Because the other thing that happens, people walk into dojos. I know it's off topic.
Yep.
People walk into dojos. We speak a language that the other person, and it's so intimidating. You know, when you walk in the door of a school and you don't know anything, and they're talking about floretes and redondos and sombrados, and they're talking about abecedarios and mataleao, and they're talking about pasuks and sapudalums, and you know, and they're like,
they're deer in headlights.
What?
Like, what are you saying?
It makes exactly right.
Yeah.
And you
the
know
only word they understood was the.
It's like when your doctor hits you with a bunch of medical jargon to tell you your diagnosis. You're like, that's great, doc. Now tell me it in layman's terms so I can understand.
What does that mean?
You feel outside. You feel that you're not, like you're smaller, right, when they do that to you. And that's what happens when people come in and everybody uses a language that or terminology that this new person is not familiar with. So you gotta, you know, start to bring them into the language a little bit so they feel more comfortable. And you know, and I'll do stuff like, you know, say, and I'll even make fun of the term once in a while for, you know, like I'll talk about like, we're going to do redondos. And they go, and I'll look over and go, that's a fancy Filipino word for circle. You know, and then it chuckles just like that. And then they're like, cool, redondo. I'll learn a new word. Because something stupid like that is also how they remember it.
Right. It's true. It's true.
But you give them a chuckle. You give them a little bit of knowledge. They have a little bit of fun. That was cool. I'm going to try it tomorrow night. Next thing you know, 10 years later, you've got a best friend.
Right. Is there any other just, you know, lies that you want to, if you can think of any other just lies that either keep getting perpetuated or things that you just really want the audience to know about? These are lies, and I'm going to tell you why. You know, like whether it's from the teaching side, the learning side, or the business side too.
The belt side.
Let's talk about the belt system. So, wow. Yeah.
You got that extra battery, right?
I did. So, man, I could go on all day, but I want you to go crazy. We know there's pros and cons and all that.
The belt system and the concept of rank.
Well, that's actually a good question.
Like
Let's
the
just
actual
go
belt, or the fact that there's a rank that's symbolized physically by something.
Let's just start with the belt system.
Okay.
Let's start with that. So, your thoughts on the belt system? Obviously, you know, we can go into a brief history of it, but my main concern is helping people understand what the belt system is, whether or not it's even a good idea anymore, or if it's useful, or if it needs to be, is there a better way to do it, you know? And I would like you to talk about any lies about the belt system that you just want them to know about.
So much.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, with the belt system, I guess we have to start by saying you have to understand that every belt system, and I say this like forcing myself to be patient with other
Right.
You have to understand that every belt system is simply a reflection of the standards inside that specific program at that school. So when I see people bash somebody else, be like, oh man, I'd like, that guy's a black belt, whatever. It's like, yeah, and if you joined that school and you went under the same standards that they were under, you would achieve your black belt in the same amount of time. Just like if they go to this other school that you're at, which you have different standards, they would achieve their black belt under those standards. It's everybody's different. Some people, you know, you have to train for 10 years. Some people it's 1 year. Well, the amount of training it takes to get to that standard are different. They're just different. It's just a level. Black belts are not equal across the board. Black belt does not mean one thing, you know, and that's how we treat it. We treat like black belt means this, like oh, a Taekwondo black belt's bullshit, but a BJJ black belt is amazing. Well, I mean, and I'm guilty of it.
Sure.
Dude, I've looked at a 7-year-old third-degree black belt and like scoffed at it for sure. Like, yeah, whatever, kid, you know. But the reality of it is, rank is just a measurement within inside your own peer group.
Right.
Right. The problem is when you try to boast your rank or your measurement inside your peer group onto another peer group. You try to because you know, Taekwondo is not jiu-jitsu, jiu-jitsu is not Muay Thai, Muay Thai is not karate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so people mess it up for us.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to actual rank, I think rank needs to be a component of like 4 different things. I think rank needs to be a component, let's see if I can remember all these, of time, of skill, of attitude, and of relationship with your instructor.
Okay.
It should be a reflection of these 4 things. So if you look at skill, relationship with your instructor, and attitude, all of those things take time to demonstrate or develop, right?
Yep.
Okay. So if you look at skill takes time, right? Skill is developed by attitude. If you have a shitty attitude, you're not going to train in the way you need to develop the skill, right? And if you have a bad relationship with your instructor and he thinks you're kind of a jerk, he might not pass on to you the things that can really hurt people because he doesn't need you doing that to other people because you got a bad attitude. Right? So you gotta have those good things, So let's go to attitude. In order to show me your attitude as an instructor, that's going to take a little bit of time, right? I need to see you in different stages of your training, in different stages under pressure. You know, as far as skill goes, you know, well, you have to have the attitude we already established to establish good skill, right? And then your attitude will determine your relationship with me as your instructor, right? If you got a bad attitude, you think I'm not going to know that? You think everybody in the world is not going to come talk to me? I'm the instructor. You know, dojos are microcosms, bro. You know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, when it comes to relationship with the instructor, that takes time to develop, right? As far as skill goes, I got to work with you for you to develop skill. That's going to take time because skill is the medium we're going to use to spend that time together, right?
Yep.
And then attitude. If you got a poor attitude, I don't want to spend time with you. Yeah. It's just how it is. So your rank, you know, is a component of those 4 things in my mind. You know, and if you're ever at a point where you're not moving forward, then you need to maybe assess something and go, okay, what of these 4 things am I missing? You know, you got 4 limbs, right? 2 arms, 2 legs. You would feel off if one of them wasn't there. You would feel like, oh, yeah. And you wouldn't like be missing a limb and just like ignore it.
Right.
You're right? And here's the thing, people like to ignore one of those 4 quadrants. People say, well, I've got the skill to be whatever else I want. Okay, I've heard this argument. Let's say you let's say you come into my school, and you already have all the technical requirements to be a black belt in our curriculum. Okay, should I give you a black belt on the first day?
Right.
Should I?
Probably not.
Probably not. What if somebody comes into jiu-jitsu? Somebody comes in, right, wearing a white belt. So they've never done jiu-jitsu before, but they watch UFC, love it, roll around with their brothers all the time. You know, they've gone to other jiu-jitsu schools with their buddies and fooled around and played, but they're not official jiu-jitsu guys. But they tap one of your black belts first night.
Yeah.
Do you give that white belt a black belt on day one?
Right.
No. It takes time. You got to know their attitude, because this guy's going to crush somebody later on. Is he just going to grab this belt and leave and go somewhere else and collect another? You don't know what they're going to do. So there's all these components. Some people think it's just about time. I've seen people lose their minds over rank. I've seen people sit there and cry, physically cry tears when somebody else gets promoted because it wasn't them. I'm talking about an adult. Wow. I'm not talking about kids. I had somebody flip out one time out in a parking lot because they didn't get promoted. And that was really what made me sit down and go, okay, I need to think about what rank is. And that's how I figured out these 4 components. Like, okay, what's going on? And that particular person would only look at other people and go, I've been here longer than them. Why are they moving up? Well, number one, bad attitude is a problem.
Right.
You know, okay, all you have is time. You don't have skill because you're not putting the time in because you have bad attitude.
Yeah.
You know, and that bad attitude doesn't make for a good relationship with me.
Right.
You come in, you won't talk to me, and you snarl at me, and you throw little temper tantrums. How do you think your relationship with me is going to be?
Yeah.
Instead of coming to me and saying to me, I'd really like to move up, but I'm not too sure what else I need to do. Can you give me some guidance?
Right.
That's a total different approach.
Right.
That kind of approach makes me go, what a great attitude. I'm going to spend some time with you to work on your skill because you got such a great attitude.
Because they're worth your investment of time.
Yes. And now that's developing a better relationship with me. So to me, rank personally is those 4 things. Okay. Time, skill, attitude, and relationship.
Gotcha.
You know, now beyond that, people like to twist it other ways. But, you know, if we take it beyond my personal opinion, for an instructor, it's so I can look out of the room and I know what to expect from people. If I got 3 students I've been training, I know what to expect from them. Yeah. If I walk into a class and I got 25 people on the floor, belts or some sort of insignia helps me see okay, I shouldn't take this group of people and put them with that group. They're going to destroy them. Yeah. You know, but I can expect these guys are going to need to have their hands held. These guys, I can just give them an assignment and walk away and let them go because they've got the skill to figure it out. Yeah. You know, that helps me divvy up how I spend my time on the floor as a teacher. Right. That's what rank is for me. But the students take it differently. The students take it
reference again.
Yes, the students take it very personal. Like to them, their rank, all of a sudden, they assign their personal value to their rank. And that's amazing, and it just destroys them.
Yes, yes, and it's really hard to manage that.
Yes.
As the teacher.
Yes.
And because it's such a constant where you're like, look, you know, and it goes back to communication, it goes back to the culture of the school, it goes back to all these things where you're trying to always manage that they're not taking it or getting too personal, even though the whole journey is a personal journey, that they don't go too far with it.
Yeah.
You know,
it's really interesting how you weed those people out. I shouldn't say weed them out, but how those people start to identify themselves for you is when they choose the art based on how long it takes to get a black belt. Yeah. Right. You tell, when I was told, I'm under Chet Skemmelhorn for jiu-jitsu, and he's notorious for long times in between ranks. Yeah. Right. And I'm actually okay with that. I've been with him 12 years. I'm a purple belt. Right. And most people, I tell them I've been doing it 12 years. 12 years, bro. So you've been you're almost about ready for that first stripe on your black. I'm like, I'm not a black belt. And they don't understand. They're like, wait, it was like 10 years. Well, Chet tell you in the beginning, it's going to be a 15 to 20 year journey. That's how it's going to be. Yeah. And knowing that ahead of time makes that so much easier for me to not worry about rank. You know what I'm saying? But everybody, and it's a good question, because if you don't know that black belt represents many other things, right? And you only think that black belt represents now you can kick ass. Yeah. You get a person that comes into a school that thinks they need to learn how to kick ass. So they go around and they go say, how long is it going to take me? And the karate guy says it's going to be 5 years. and they go to the
They've created an expectation.
They say 5 years. Like, you go to Taekwondo school and they say, how long is it going to take me? And it says, oh, we've got a black belt contract. We can get you there in 2 years. We can map it out for you and show you how many classes you got to attend and all this kind of stuff. And that's what they do now. Yeah. Which is kind of fascinating to me.
It is.
Yeah, I had a guy
But it goes back to how you were explaining that's their standard. So according to their standards, that is a black belt. Correct. According to their standards.
That's
so
right.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's been another huge debate across the board with all the people I've been talking to. And they're like, oh, you can't earn a black belt in 2 years or a year. I'm like, you could earn a black belt in a day. It just has to do with if that school instructor and organization deemed it so, then yes, that is a black belt according to those standards. Do you and I like it? Of course not. We don't want to do it like that.
Right.
So, no, I don't think you should do that. But if somebody does that, well, I mean, hey, there's people that get certified in many different ways. They get certified via going to a school for like 5 or 10 years. They can do it through seminars. They can even do it today on online video training. Oh. So that's a whole, and maybe we can bring that up as part of the lies of the lies segment. And
want to hear a great story?
I do.
This is a good one. So I used to have this buddy of mine, who was one of my kickboxing teachers, great guy. And we met through a acquaintance that was teaching Taekwondo. But he essentially, this is not a reflection of Taekwondo, but he was a charlatan, the guy teaching Taekwondo.
Right.
100% charlatan, learning off of videotapes and then presenting it to the public like he knew what he was doing. No real instructor. He was creating certificates off his own printer for himself. And like it was, and so we would we knew this guy personally. So we would kind of, it was like our inside joke between each other when we would go train. And it was just our thing. Never meant to hurt anybody. And so once in a while when he would come into town, he'd call me up and he'd be like, yeah, I'm looking for a good Taekwondo instructor, and I'd be like, and I would recognize his voice right away, and I'd play with him on the phone, be like, oh yeah, no, we got the best. We throw the highest kicks in town. Just kind of joking around, and just have, for a minute. Well, one day he called my school instead of my home phone. He'd come into town.
Oh man.
So I answer my phone, and this guy says, it sounded just like him, I swear to God. and he says, yeah, how long is it going to take me to earn a black belt in your school? And I says to the guy, because I thought it was my buddy, 100%.
Oh no!
I say to him, I says, earn it? Hell no, man! It's like 5 G's. You come in with a check right now. We can even embroider it in the back for you while you wait. And he goes, oh, that's awesome, man. Where are you at? Because he'd never been in my school.
Right.
So I thought this was his way of coming and checking out my old location.
Right.
So I give him the address, Guy walks into my school. And he's like, he's got a fucking check in his hand.
No way.
And in that moment, I realized, I have made a mistake. I have made such a huge mistake. And I immediately apologized to the guy. I said, I'm sorry. I thought you were my buddy. We do not embroider black belts here. You cannot purchase a black belt here for $5,000. I am terribly sorry. That is not how I thought it was an inside joke. And you know what? I still got the guy to come in and do a trial. But
okay. Well, yeah.
But that's an insight to you, which you already have, to where we are with the concept of rank in this country.
Yes.
I made a joke about for $5,000 I'll give you a black belt and I'll embroider it while you wait, and he showed up that night with a check.
Huh.
So that tells you that's why you stop and talk to your students. That's when you find out the goals.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Yep.
That's why that stuff is important. And that's why figuring out what rank means is important.
Yeah.
And a black belt is only as good as the person wearing it.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
It comes down to the individual. And just like we've heard before many times, the individual, themselves is more important than rank system or style. But
completely.
To just basically conclude this segment, because in the next one we're going to go into the amazing benefits of martial arts, because I don't want my interviews with people or even my book to dissuade anybody from actually getting involved in martial arts. But my goal is to peel back the layers that have been put there by people who are not you and me, who really took advantage of people, or they had nefarious intentions, or they just went about it and they made it very hard for you and me to really make this work, because they came in before us, they lied to people, they deceived, they had bad business practices, whatever. So my goal in the interviews and the talks and the book and everything is to peel back those layers. They need to know about this stuff first, because they do need to know about the charlatans. They do need to know about these people in order to distinguish them from you and me.
Well, thank God they came first.
Right.
So that like we got examples of all the stuff not to do.
Yep.
And then thank God you're doing this to help out the generations of people in the future. We're in the prime location. If we were earlier, we would have been part of them.
That's true. I didn't actually even think about it that way.
And if we were later, maybe you hadn't come along to help out everybody else.
Nope.
Right? So you really like we're in a good spot.
We're in a good spot.
We got to see both sides. I mean, I grew up with a rotary phone on the wall, and now I've got a cell phone.
Yeah.
On my ear.
Yeah.
Like I can talk to people through my car. What? Like it's crazy. Like,
right.
But I love that the kids today, it's always been a cell phone. Everything in the world's been at the edge of your fingers on your phone. Like I had to look things up in a card catalog. Right. How much more grateful are we for that?
Oh,
that we
man.
get to see both sides.
Eternally.
It's a beautiful thing.
Hang on for the next segment there, guys. We're going to go into the amazing benefits of martial arts, and see you soon.